Okay. All
Yeah.
right. When my youngest daughter first went to school, when she entered into grade 1, the excitement in our family was unbelievable because, as said in the introduction, my husband and I had 5 children, and so she was the youngest of 5. And our 5 children, by the way, were in 7 years, so we were a pretty busy little household. And every year somebody went to school, and this youngest one would cry because she couldn't go to school. She wanted to go to school so badly, and we played school at home, and we did all kinds of things because to her, school was where she wanted to be. And she used to say to me over and over again, I can hardly wait, Mom. It's going to be so much fun when I go to school. And so I still remember her first day of kindergarten. My goodness, I put her on the bus, half day kindergarten. She came home on the bus. And when she got off the bus, I was there to meet her. And I said, oh, Jill, how was your first day at school? She said, Mom, that's not school. I said, that's kindergarten. She said, I'll go because you have to go to kindergarten to get to school. And so I'll go, but it wasn't very much fun, Mom. It was so organized. Never forgotten that. She said to me, it was so organized. And we spent all morning understanding how to be organized. And she said, I don't know when the fun will start. And it did. I want to reassure you that in kindergarten, early childhood education, the fun got going. But she didn't see this as school. And so for her first day in grade 1, and those of you who are parents will really appreciate this one, she packed her bag for grade 1 on July 3rd. Now, we're not going till September 7th. So she had her bag packed and ready. And we counted, oh my goodness, all summer we counted the number of times you have to brush your teeth, the number of breakfasts, the number of sleeps. She counted everything because everything was based on that first day of school. So on her first day of school, her dad and I, because we knew how exciting this was for her, we decided to make it a really big day. We took the day off work. We walked her to school, about 5 blocks from our house. We walked her to school. And when we got to school, she said, you can't come past the fence because I'm a big girl now and I'm going to school by myself. And so she went through the fence, that little hole in the fence. I was just as glad not to have to go through it. And off she went to school, and she kept turning around and waving to us. And she was just so excited. And she told us 3 or 4 times on the walk, Mom, this is what I've been waiting for. It's going to be so much fun. I'm in real school now. And away she went. And so she was going to come home for lunch. She got out of school at 11:30. And so we said to her, we will be here when it's lunchtime and we'll go home and we'll have a little lunch party and then we'll bring you back to school in the afternoon. Okay, she said. And I have to tell you, we're typical parents, I think. At about 11:15, we were hanging on the fence, waiting for her to come out of the school. And when she came out of the school, and you can pick your own kid out of a crowd of 100 easily, I saw her coming towards us. And this child, who had hopped and skipped and waved and been the most excited little thing you could ever imagine when she went into school, now came out of school in a different mode. And I was a little bit worried. She was coming across the field and she was dragging her feet. And I called to her and I said, Jill, Daddy and I are over here. And she gave us the royal wave. Not much emotion in the royal wave, is there? And as she came towards the fence, and I thought, is she ever going to get here? Because if you've ever watched a 6-year-old, they can drag one foot longer than the step they took with the other. She's coming across the schoolyard so slowly and so lethargically. And I thought, oh no. So she got to the fence and I said, oh, Jill, how was your first morning at school? And I've never forgotten her comment. She said, Mom, it wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be. And I said, oh no, well, what happened, dear? And she said, well, first we had assembly. Oh, I said, you had an assembly. Yes, she said, and the principal told us all the things we can't do in the school. I said, well, what do you mean? Well, we can't wear our outdoor runners in, and we can't eat our lunch except in the lunchroom, and we can't go to the washroom without our teacher, and we have to have a buddy in the hallway. And she said, there's just so many things you can't do. And I said, oh, don't worry, Jill. I said, the principal's just trying to make sure that you are safe and that you know the rules. Oh, yeah, she said, I know them. And I said, so what happened next? And she said, well, then we went to our own classroom with our own teacher. Oh, I said, Jill, how was that? And she said, oh, Mom, my teacher's old like you. Now, I don't know what she was expecting, but I want to reassure you that I wasn't that old. But she said, my teacher's old like you. And I said, well, what happened in the classroom? She said, well, the teacher told us all the rules of the classroom. We can't sharpen pencils without asking. We have to stay in our own group. We can't wear our outdoor runners in. We can't eat in the classroom. She said, she just told us all the rules. I said, don't worry, Jill. The teacher's just making sure that you're settled, that you understand. Oh, she said, so what did you do next? And she said, well, we went on a tour. We went to the computer room and the library and the gym. And I said, oh, how was that, dear? Well, she said, I guess it'll be okay. But all they did was tell us all the rules in the computer room, the library, and the gym. And I started to despair. I know that none of those adults had any intention of making it not fun. But sometimes we get so focused on the things we have to do, the things we're allowed to do, the things we cannot do, the things we're not allowed to do. And so I said, well, what happened next? And she said, we went out for recess. And I got really excited. I loved recess. And I said, I said, did you get to play in the new playground? She said, no, Mom. They took us on a tour of the playground so as we'd know where we can play and where we can't play. And I don't get to play in the new playground until after Christmas. So she said, I don't know, Mom. I don't think I'm going back after lunch. And I thought, oh my God, what do you do with a 6-year-old who wants to drop out on the first day? I said, oh, Jill, we'll find a way, I said. And we went home, we had lunch, and we talked her into going back. I don't mind telling you, we talked her into going back for 12 years. And then we actually talked her into going to college for a couple of years too. And, I say talked her in because I really think that indeed those experiences, that journey, the way things happen is so important to how we feel about them. And so I began to think, gosh, this is such an important time, but every day is important time. And I look back on that and I think, oh, by the way, I should probably share this with you. Eventually she went to school. Now she's a teacher. And you know what I think? I think she's a teacher who understands that the joy and the fun must accompany the rules and the guidelines. And so I share that with you because that prompted my research about bringing joy and fun and laughter to everything that we do, but particularly in my case to learning environments. And so it worked out. It worked out. Of course it worked out. And I'm not going to tell you that she didn't have any fun in school. Although I will tell you that I think that sometimes we create environments that aren't as much fun as they probably should be. So I'm going to challenge you this morning to see things a little differently, because it's an old saying, but it's such a good saying. It isn't about what happens to us. It's about how we choose to see what happens to us. And yes, I will say to you, we've just been through a very challenging time. We've been through a very difficult time. But the questions I'm starting to ask people is, oh, what's in this that we've learned? What have we figured out? What can we do differently? And please don't think that it hasn't been any fun. Because indeed, I think a lot of families, and I've talked to a lot of people who say this, oh boy, they say, we figured out some of the things that we can do again that actually bring joy and fun and laughter. However, how do we bring joy and fun and laughter? Well, part of it is in how we see things. And I often have found that sometimes when I see things differently, things start to appear differently to me. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples, a couple of stories that I think will challenge you to think about seeing things differently and seeing the humor and seeing the joy. Because things happen to us. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I tell people that COVID happened to us. We didn't bring it on. We didn't invite it. We weren't a part of what led up to it. But we did have to deal with it. So it happened to us. How we chose to deal with that was ours. And I think it's been challenging, but I think we can choose some differences. So here we go. Sometimes things happen to you that you would prefer don't happen to you. And I'm going to share a little story that actually Judy asked me to share, and I don't mind at all. I had a situation one time that in the first light of it was not funny. But in the big light of it and in the ongoing light of it became actually one of the cornerstones or the foundations of my approach to how we see things. So I'll share it with you. I do a lot of driving, and I've done a lot of driving in Alberta. In fact, I could sing a song about I've been everywhere in Alberta, and I would love to sing that song. And it was so nice to see some of you earlier this morning and recognize you and be able to say, oh, I've been there, because, my travel has become my joy. I love to travel. And so, of course, I've missed it in the last year and a half. So I'm traveling virtually now and finding joy in that too. But in my travels, there have been things happen to me that caught me by surprise. So here's the little story, and I hope you'll laugh with me, and I can pull it together at the end and get you thinking about finding humor. I was driving home from High Prairie, and I've driven the route many times. I always have to choose. Am I going to go through Swan Hills? Am I going to go through Slave Lake? That particular day I went through Swan Hills, and I went through Westlock, and then I arrived in St. Albert. And I usually go in through St. Albert because I live in Sherwood Park, and that gives me a little bit more direct route. And so I arrived in St. Albert, and when I arrived in St. Albert, I realized that Gertie was my car at the time. Do you name your cars? I always name my cars. Gives you a better relationship. And if you're going to travel a lot, if you're going to be in your car a lot, you want to have a good relationship. I talked to Gertie. I used to talk to Gertie quite a bit. But anyways, Gertie informed me with that flashing light that you get that she needed gas. And so I pulled into a gas station, and I thought, it's not just Gertie. I need a little snack too. So I filled Gertie with gas, and I went into the store, and I got myself my absolutely favorite treat, which was a little tub of yogurt. I shouldn't say little tub because I actually got the bigger tub of yogurt. And Gertie was one of those old station wagons with a big fold down thing in the middle seat, so you could fold down this armrest, I suppose it was supposed to be, but that actually became my picnic table, and probably shouldn't admit it to you. Might have been distracted driving, who knows? But so I lowered this little armrest that I have, and I put my tub of yogurt on there, and Gertie's happy now, and she's ready to go. And so I've got my little tub of yogurt, and I opened it up. And then I pulled back onto St. Albert Trail, back into the traffic. And as soon as I pulled out of the service station, there's a red light right there. And I stopped at the red light. And it was probably about 8 o'clock at night in June, so it was broad daylight. And I remember taking my first bite of yogurt and sitting at the red light, waiting for the red light to change. And, it was very interesting to me because as I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw something coming that was probably a wee bit of a warning. I didn't take it as such. I saw a truck coming behind me, a fairly large truck, actually, with a winch on the front of it, a lift on the front of it. And I thought, that truck seems to be coming rather quickly. And so I remember taking another bite of yogurt and looking in the rearview mirror and thinking, oh, I hope he's slowing down soon. And another bite of yogurt, look in the rearview mirror, and I thought, shit, he's going to hit me. And I didn't do anything. You know how sometimes when we're kind of taken by surprise, he's going to hit me. I had my foot on the brake, and sure enough, this truck came. I could hear his brakes. He did put on his brakes at the last moment. But this truck came right into the back of Gertie. And I could actually see the winch on that truck coming into the back of my vehicle. And of course, I got pushed. And I got pushed through the intersection. Fortunately, the light had turned green, so there was no traffic coming either direction. Pushed into the intersection and across the street. And as a matter of fact, as I got pushed off the street, my car hit the curb, of course. And so I don't know. I can't describe how all of this happened, but perhaps it was the force of being hit from behind. Perhaps it was the force of bumping into the curb in the front. But whatever happened, my tub of yogurt, my very favorite treat, flew straight up. It didn't fly straight down, though. It sort of sidled over and landed right on my head. Can you imagine a tub of yogurt on your head? However, it landed quickly, and I suppose, in a sense, that was a good thing because it prevented it all from spilling, but it was seeping out. So if you can picture this, I've got this tub of yogurt like a hat on my head, and it's kind of seeping out and moving down, and I thought, oh my God, what happened here? And then I looked in the rearview mirror, and I could actually see the winch of that truck in the back of my car, and and then I saw in my side view mirror the guy jumping out of the truck and running up to the side of my car. Window was down. It was June. It was beautiful. I probably had the window down and the tunes up. Who knows? But there I am sitting there, and I'm kind of stunned a little bit because it's quite a two hits. And so I'm sitting there, and this guy came up out of the truck, and he looked in the window, and I still remember it. And he was a large man and an older man. He looked in the window and he said, "Oh my God, I've knocked your brains out." And I remember thinking, that's ridiculous. I said, "Those aren't my brains. That's yogurt." And he started to laugh. And I don't know why he laughed. Who knows why we start to laugh sometimes? But he started to laugh. And then I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror with all of this yogurt. And I started to laugh. And I realized in that moment that I probably wasn't hurt. I was a little shaken, I have to tell you. I was a little shaken, but I probably wasn't hurt. But I couldn't help but laugh. And so as he's laughing and I'm laughing, I thought, well, I have to get out of here. And when I opened the door, and when I went to move, of course, the yogurt fell off to the side and splashed all over him. And so we're standing there and we are looking at each other and we can't even talk. We are just laughing and laughing. And I said, "Oh my God," I said, "we shouldn't be laughing. This is an accident. There's cars lining up behind us." And he said, "Oh, I know," but he said, I really thought I'd knocked your brains out, but obviously you've still got your brains." And so we're laughing. He is slapping his leg. He's laughing so hard. And I'm laughing. And people start to gather because, of course, it's an accident. People always gather. People are coming around and they say, "What happened?" And he said to 4 or 5 people standing around me, he said, "Well, you know, I hit her." He said, "I hit her from behind. I thought I was watching the next light. I wasn't watching this light. And I hit her from behind." And he said, "Then I came up here and I saw this and I thought I'd knocked her brains out." And people start to laugh. We had gathered probably 8 or 10 people. And everybody's laughing. And so I got the yogurt off my head, and people were giving me napkins and Kleenex, and I kind of trying to clean myself up. And he said, he said, "I feel awful. I feel awful." And I said, "Well, you know," I said, I'm okay. "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "But we got to get our cars apart." And so I said, well, okay. So he said, "I'll just try to back out." So he got in his truck, and when he backed up, Gertie went with him. And so there we are. We're attached. We're literally attached. And so I said, "Well, maybe if you put your foot on the brake, maybe I could drive ahead." So he put his foot on the brake, and I tried to drive, and nothing happened. Gertie just spun her tires. And so I said, I think we're stuck. And so I said, do we need to call the police?" And he said, "I guess we better call the police." And so I had a cell phone. He didn't have a cell phone. So I got my cell phone, and I remember putting my cell phone to my ear, and it kind of got sticky with yogurt. But anyways, I phoned the police, and I said, "My name's Brenda Robinson." I said, "We've had a little accident here on St. Albert Trail." And I said, "This guy hit me from behind, and he's stuck in my rear end." There's silence on the other end of the phone. Dead silence. I don't know what I've said. I wasn't aware of what I've said. And then I started to hear laughter. And I said, "Did you hear what I said?" And he said, "Oh, yes, I heard what you said." He said, "You told me that some guy hit you from behind and he's stuck in your rear end." And he was laughing and he's laughing. And I said, "Oh, my God, did I say that?" And I said, "Well, let me explain. There's a winch on his truck and it's stuck in the back of my car." And he said, "It's okay. Where are you?" So I told him, "Well, we're in front of the Boston Pizza here on St. Albert Trail." And he said, "I'll be right down." And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, this may be a minor accident, but within, I think, 3 or 4 minutes, there were 2 police cars who arrived. And there were 2 officers in each car. And they got out of the car and they're coming towards us, but they're laughing. They're laughing. And they come towards us, and all these people are gathered around. And this one police officer said, "We had to come and see what happened." He said, "This lady phoned in. We've never had a call like this. This lady phoned in, said she'd been hit from behind and somebody was stuck in her rear end. And here we are." And everybody's laughing and I'm laughing. And Henry, by the way, I found out his name was Henry. Henry's laughing. And you know, here we are. We're in an accident. Shouldn't be funny. Should not be funny, but it was probably one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me. And so the police officers, bless their hearts, they said, "Well, let's get these vehicles apart." And Henry and I both said, well, we've tried. We can't get them apart. Oh, well, we'll do it, they said. So one of the officers got in Henry's truck. One officer got in my car. What he didn't know is that there's quite a bit of yogurt on my seat. So when he got out of my car, he had a new stripe down his back, a yogurt stripe. And then we all laugh at him. But to make a long story short, they tried to pull ahead. They tried to pull back, and these cars weren't coming apart. And so the police officer said, we'll need to call a tow truck. We need to get a tow truck down here. And so he's calling the tow truck, and I can see him. He stepped away from me, but I can see him. And he is rocking with laughter. And I know what he's saying. He's saying, we need a tow truck down here. Some lady got hit from behind, and this guy's stuck in her rear end. And oh my God, the tow truck shows up with 3 people in it. And they are laughing, and everybody's like, we've gathered probably 30 people, and people are just laughing. And you know, this shouldn't be this much fun. But it really was. It really was. And I started to realize that, you know, we're both fine. We're okay. These cars can be, in fact, I don't think there's any damage to Henry's truck at all. And I thought my car can be fixed. And I've got insurance, okay? I always remember the Fried Green Onions movie. I'm older and I've got insurance. And I've got insurance. So I thought, you know, this is okay. I'm just going to enjoy it. And so I'm laughing with everybody. And I'm telling people I can't believe what I said. And so the tow truck pulls out. And they got us apart, okay? The tow truck managed to wiggle things around and push and shove. And so they finally got us apart. And the police officer said to me, he said, I need you to write it down. I thought, I am not writing down what I said, but we did, Henry and I, and we exchanged information, and we handled all of the stuff. And so my car was still drivable, actually. Just it smacked in the back end, and so it wasn't all that. And it's June, and I'm not going to freeze to death driving home. Although I have to tell you, on the way home, I was having difficulty because the yogurt's still coming out of my hair and blurring my vision. And on my way home, I'm thinking, oh my God, I better warn my husband. And so I pulled over kind of to clean up, phoned my husband and said, I'm on my way home. But I said, be prepared. I've been in a bit of an accident and damaged Gertie. And so just know before I get home that Gertie's damaged. And I said, and I can't believe what I did. And I told him what I told the police, and he laughed. And so when I got home, my husband and the kids were waiting out in the yard for me, and they're laughing. And, you know, I have to tell you this, I don't ever want to be an offender bender. I hope I'm never in one again. But if I must be in one, let it be as much fun as that one, because, oh my God, I laugh every time I think about it. But, you know, here's the best part. Shared laughter builds relationships. Shared laughter makes connections. Shared laughter gives us a way to relate. And, you know, I for years after that, I'd go to High Prairie a fair amount. And it just seemed to me, you know, you call it coincidence or call it what you like, but it seemed like every time I went to High Prairie, I wouldn't be there long when I would see Henry. Oh, sometimes he was walking down the street. One time he was in a restaurant that I went into. One time he was in the convenience store I went into. But whenever I saw Henry, it was immediate. We started to laugh. And then we would recount that situation. And he said, you know, I felt bad about that. But he said, every time I felt bad, then I'd start to laugh about the story. And so I'm just going to say to you, we can have things happen to us that aren't by our design, that aren't what we would have liked to have happen to us. But sometimes, and I hope it's more than rare occasions, we can find the humor. And that is what I have tried to do. I have, in fact, my sister always calls me Pollyanna. She said, oh yeah, Brenda, we'll find the silver lining. You know what? Absolutely, I will. And if there is one to be found, I'll look for it. And if they're hard to find, I'll look harder for it. Because here's my belief. When we can find what it is that lightens up a situation, that gives a situation more fun and more humor, then I think we can find what it is that connects people and brings them together. And you know, I've done lots of work over the years on team building, organizational culture, and leadership, and I never, ever fail to tell people and suggest to people that indeed good leaders, good teams, good players, because I think it applies to everything that we do, are people who indeed not only work hard, I believe in working hard, but work hard not just to get the results that we want, but work hard to find ways to enjoy getting the results that we need. And so I encourage people, let's find the silver lining and let's figure out what we can do to share that silver lining with others and move ahead positively. So I hope you're never in a fender bender like that one, but if you are, I hope it ends up like that one, because I haven't seen Henry now for 2 or 3 years, but every time I think about him, a smile comes to my face. And I think there's something to be said for that kind of shared humor. But sometimes we're so serious about things. We're so rule driven. And I chose this morning to share an old story with you because I think that it was one of my teachers at the time. I was many years ago, and those of you who are from the North know how much I've traveled in the North, but I was in Peace River back in the good old days when Peace River actually had flights out of the airport. And I have regular flights out of the airport. And I know you still have some, but not the kind we used to. And so I had actually been in Manning, and I noticed that there was somebody here from Manning. So you'll appreciate a little bit of this story too. I was in Manning, and I had been doing a workshop in Manning, and I was planning to fly out of Peace River that evening. And so my friend Trudy, very interesting because some of you might know Trudy who live in Manning, but Trudy had worked with continuing education at the time, had agreed to give me a ride to the airport in Peace River. However, we finished the workshop and we arrived in Peace River early. Perhaps too early to sit in the Peace River Airport. No offense to the airport, but there wasn't a lot to do there. And so we had a couple of hours when we arrived at the airport. And Trudy said to me, well, she said, well, why don't I just drop you off? You can check in, let them know you're here. Get rid of your luggage, she said. And then we'll go downtown and have a bite. And I said, oh, Trudy, that would be absolutely wonderful. So she dropped me off. I went in. And I will tell you this, and I hope it's nobody that anybody knows, but the lady who worked at the airport at that point was not one of those people who just naturally looked like she was going to be fun. She had a very serious appearance on her face. But she was a kind woman, and I'd met her a few times. But I think she was one of those people, kind of like my daughter's first experience at school. She liked everybody to know the rules. And so when I checked in, and I was quite happy, and I said, oh, my friend and I are going to go down and downtown, and we're going to have a bite to eat. And she said, oh, she said, I'm sorry. Once you've checked in, you can't leave the airport. You're not allowed to leave the airport because once you've checked in, we have to keep track of people. And so no, I don't think you should do that. And I said, oh, okay. And so she checked me in. She took my luggage. I had my little boarding pass because we used to have those little boarding passes. And I thought, not allowed? That's exactly what I thought. So I waited for her to go in the back, and then I hustled myself out the front door, got in the truck with Trudy, and away we went downtown. In fact, we went downtown, and there's a Chinese restaurant in Peace River that I love. And so we decided to go in there because they have a buffet and it wouldn't take long and we'd be back to the airport in lots of time. And so we went into the restaurant. We had a nice little dinner, and the flight was supposed to leave at 7:30. And so I was a little nervous about having broken the rules. And so I said to Trudy at 6:30, I said, Trudy, I think we better get ourselves back to the airport. I said, I would like to have that lady see me there and know. And so off we finished our meal. We paid for a meal, and we went out to Trudy's truck, and she had locked her keys in the truck. And I went, oh no, this can't be. I said, Trudy, do you have another set of keys? And she said, well, at home in Manning, I do. I said, oh no, can we get in here? And so we started to do what people do when they lock their keys in their door. We went back into the restaurant and we asked for coat hangers. Have you ever done it? Okay. So we both get a coat hanger. We're on either side of the vehicle. We don't care which door we open. We're going to try to get into that truck, and quickly because I have to get back to the airport. And so have you done it? Oh yeah. You force it in through the window, and then you're bending and twisting, and we're both working on each side. And oh my goodness, I looked at the time and it's now 6:45, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, what will happen? I said, maybe I should call a cab, Trudy. And so I called called a cab, but the cab driver said, well, I'm watching the game right now. He said, I can be down there in maybe half an hour. I thought, oh no, I have to get there right away. And so we're working and it's 7 and it's 5 after 7. I'm thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, that woman's going to be so mad at me and maybe I'll miss my flight. And then all of a sudden, Trudy got it. She said, I got it. And so she opened her door. She opened my door. We jumped into the truck. And I don't mind telling you that I'm really glad there were no RCMP on the highway between Peace River and the airport, because we drove rather quickly to the airport. So we drive into the airport, and I love the Peace River Airport because you can see into it. There's big windows. And not only could I see into the airport, I could see out the other side, and I could see my little plane sitting there. And you know, it's still 10 minutes before departure time. I think, oh, I've done it. I've made it. And so I jumped out of the truck, barely said goodbye to Trudy, and I ran into the airport. And there was the woman who had given me the rules. And her immediate words were not fun. She said, I told you you weren't allowed to leave the airport. I said, I know. I said, and I'm so sorry. I broke the rules and I'll never do it again. I said, I've learned my lesson, but I'm so glad I'm here before the plane left. And she said, well, yes, it hasn't left, but you're too late. I said, what do you mean you're too late? And she said, well, the plane is already boarded and we have locked the departure doors. I said, what do you mean you've locked the departure doors? I said, the plane's still sitting there. Let me out. And she said, no, I can't do that. She said, our doors are controlled by a computer in Edmonton. And once those doors are locked, we can't reopen them until the next flight. I said, when's the next flight? And she said, tomorrow morning. I thought, oh my God, I can't miss this flight. I said, my luggage is on there. She said, we can throw your luggage off. And I thought, oh, you can't let me miss this flight. And I begged her. I said, please. I said, I have to get to Edmonton tonight because tomorrow morning I have a flight to Winnipeg and I need to be on that flight. And please, I said, please, can you let me out? And she said, the doors are locked. I'm sorry. And I maybe it was because I was almost in tears. And she said to me, well, you should have listened to me. And I said, I know. And I said, I will always listen to you from now on. You needn't worry. I said, isn't there any other way out? And she said, well, the baggage chute stays open. I said, what do you mean the baggage chute stays open? And she said, you know, we put the baggage on the line and then it goes out and it goes outside on a belt. And she said, I guess I could let you out that way. I said, will you? Oh, that would be so nice. And so I came around behind the counter and we went into the back and I saw what she meant. There's actually a belt and there's a kind of a trap door at the end of the belt and the luggage goes out there and then it goes onto a cart and then they take it over to the plane. And I said, oh, that looks rather hard to do. And she said, well, it's the only way out. She said, you'd have to get up on the belt. I said, you're not going to turn the belt on and shoot me out, are you? Oh, no, she said, I won't turn the belt on. She said, you can just crawl down there and then you can drop out the trap door. Oh, I said, well, I thought I have to be on this flight. And so, you know, it's not something I would have liked to have done, but I thought I will do what I have to do to get on this flight. And so I climbed up on the luggage belt, which is about 3 feet in the air. And of course, the trap door is just for luggage. So it's not 6 feet high. It's about 3.5 feet high. So I know that I'm going to have to crawl through it. And so I remember fondly, but at the same time, it was quite a chore. I had my briefcase and my purse. So I'm pushing them ahead of me. And I'm crawling on my hands and knees. And those of you who know me know that I always wear dresses. And it was winter and I had a long coat on. And so I'm feeling fairly protected. So I'm crawling down this baggage chute, pushing my purse and my luggage ahead of me. And I got to the end and I looked out and it's about a 3-foot drop. So I had this sudden realization that I can't drop out there head first. That would not be appropriate and not even safe. So I'm going to have to turn around. And so I'm in for a penny and for a pound. So I pushed my purse out. I pushed my briefcase out and they fell and there's snow at the bottom. And I thought, oh, this is a good thing. This will break the fall. And so my purse and my luggage are out there. Then I had to back up on the belt and turn around. And then I had this realization that I am coming butt first out the luggage chute. And I don't know who's watching. And then I reassured myself. I thought, it's dark. Nobody can see. And who would be watching anyhow? Because it's only those people on the plane, and they won't know I'm coming, so they won't be watching. And so I did it, folks. I backed up. I lowered myself. You know, I had memories of being a child, jumping out the loft door. And if you didn't want to jump, what you did was you lowered yourself and then you gave a little push. But you know, those things were done when I was 10 years old. And I'm not as young or as dexterous as I was when I was 10. And so when I dropped out, I literally dropped. And I fell into the snow, and then I fell flat on my butt. And I'm shaking myself, and I'm getting up, and I saw them opening the door to the plane. And as they opened the door to the plane, I could hear the laughter. And as I walked towards the plane, I realized that everybody on the plane was looking out those little windows, and the pilot was standing at the door laughing. And he said, boy, oh boy, he said, I've never had anybody come out the luggage door to get on my flight. So welcome to you. And I remember walking up the stairs and thinking, oh my God, all these people watched me come out the chute, fall on my butt, gather up my dignity. And now I have to get on the plane. And when I got on the plane, and you know those little planes, well, there were 9 people on the plane, and all the seats were full until the back one. And I had to walk right down that aisle. And people were giving me diving scores. Somebody gave me a 9.5 and an 8.6, and somebody gave me a 10 for the effort. They were laughing. People were high-fiving me down the aisle. And I realized, oh my goodness, I made the flight. But if I don't have a sense of humor about this, I won't make it the rest of the way. And so I joined them in their laughter. And I said, I cannot believe I just did that. I cannot believe I allowed you to see me do that. But since you did, we might as well enjoy it. And oh my God, I sat down, and the pilot went back into the cockpit, and we took off. And I will tell you, that whole flight to Edmonton was sheer laughter. People started telling their stories about missing flights, about being late, about being caught up in things that they didn't want to be caught up in. But nobody, absolutely nobody, had ever come out the baggage chute to catch a flight. And you know, even by the time we got to Edmonton, in fact, the pilot turned around one time and told us we were laughing so hard he thought we might actually cause turbulence. And then we laughed harder, and we laughed. It was probably the fastest and most enjoyable flight to Edmonton that I have ever had. And some people would say, well, they were laughing at you. Oh, no. They were laughing at me, and they were giving me opportunities to laugh with them. And what a joy it was. And you know, I've never been on a flight where people walked into the airport. You know how people walk into the airport, kind of trudging along, still talking, still laughing. We got to the baggage area, and people were still laughing, and baggage going by us, and somebody's baggage had come apart, and there were clothes hanging out, and then we're laughing at that. And then we're exchanging business cards and giving each other phone numbers because we're connected. And what connected us? Laughter. And you know, sometimes I still see some of those people. In fact, just a year or so ago, I was in the Grand Prairie Airport, and I saw somebody from that flight. And oh my goodness, we had such a good laugh together, because laughter is not a short-term connector. Laughter is a connector that keeps us working together, being together, and enjoying the things that we do together. And so, you know, once we see the lighter side of situations, then we can begin to see how we can put that to work. And, you know, I think that there's room for laughter in everything that we do. And I agree with you. We can't laugh at. We can never laugh at. But you know what? When we laugh with, when that laughter is shared, it will build something that can't be built in any other way. And so if you've been picturing me either getting hit from behind with somebody stuck in my rear end, or my rear end coming out the baggage chute, you're laughing with me. And I will admit that there were times in both of those situations where I thought, how do I get into these things? Like, why is it always me? And then I tell myself, you're lucky. Okay. You're lucky that these things happen to give you opportunities to be able to share that laughter in a good and positive way. And whether it's laughter in your family, laughter in your community, laughter in your workplace, the idea, we can't let it go. The idea that indeed, okay, we are in situations that on the face of those situations may not be funny, but we can still find the fun in them, just challenges me tremendously. And sometimes I get to see situations where people have already learned that. I had an opportunity 4 years ago, actually, to go to Pond Inlet. And I don't know how much you know about the north, but you can't go much further north than Pond Inlet. And it's a little place in the north where people sometimes go to work, and where there are some people living there who are native to the area, and it's just an amazing place. But I went up there to work with a group of people who live and work in Pond Inlet, and they wanted me to come up in January. Now, in the north in January, it's kind of called the doldrum time, because at that point they've not seen the sun for many days, a couple of months, as a matter of fact, and so they're kind of living in darkness. And so when you live in darkness, sometimes it's hard to get that sense of joy and laughter. And so they invited me up to their workplace to do a humor in the workplace workshop. And so I agreed to go, but I have to tell you, I was just a little bit worried about that the time of year and how this would be received. However, I quit worrying the minute I got there. I flew in on a helicopter, by the way, not one of my favorite things to do, but they helicoptered me in. And when we landed on the helicopter pad, there was a skidoo there to pick me up and take me to their workplace. And it was a covered skidoo. It actually had a canvas cover over it and a sign on it that said limousine. I knew I was in the right place. As soon as I saw that sign, limousine, on a skidoo, I thought, these folks have it. And so I clambered in, because you have to unzip and kind of get in behind the skidoo driver. And so I kind of clambered in, and I'm sitting behind him. And of course, skidoos are noisy, and he's yelling at me. And he said, pretty cold out here tonight. And I said, yeah, it sure is. And he said, yep. He said, it's with the wind, it's minus 53. And I thought, oh my God. So he said, so we won't be going outside. And I thought, that may be the understatement of the year. And so he transported me over to there, and it was literally a set of trailers. Atco trailers. And so he transported me over there, and we got out of the skidoo and we walked in together, and he welcomed me. He said, we're so glad you came. He said, we're having one of our days tomorrow, and we're so glad you agreed to come and talk to us. And I said, oh, I'm looking forward to it. And he said, and by the way, he said, I know it's minus 53 and you're not likely to go out, but he said, we're also on polar bear watch right now. And I'm thinking, how much worse can it get? And he said, so we're being pretty careful. And so I'll get you into the building, and that's where we'll be. And I said, okay, I'm good with that. And so he showed me where I would stay, and kind of a dorm kind of setting, but quite nice and comfortable. And then he said, I'll just take you down to the common room where we're going to hold the workshop in the morning. He said, it's where we work too, but he said, we do the kinds of jobs. And I said, okay, well, give me a little more detail. And he said, well, some of us are with Weather Canada. Some of us are with, we've got Victoria Order of Nurses here. We've got search and rescue. He said, we've got the ice flow people working here. He said, so we're kind of a mix of people. We all work out of here, but some of us have to do our work. Even tomorrow, he said, we'll be sending messages and updating people on data and stuff like that. So he said, we're just going to hold the workshop where we work. But he said, don't worry, we're used to doing that. And I was a little bit concerned. I thought, can you actually work and play at the same time? And so I thought, okay, well, I'll have to wait and see. And so he said, so in the morning, we generally have breakfast together and then we start work. And so he said, come on down about 8 a.m. He said, we'll be having breakfast and coffee. And I thought, that's my thing. So I got up in the morning and I wandered down to the common room. And on my way down to the common room, I thought, -53, polar bear watch. And I thought, maybe I'm losing my mind because I thought I could smell sunscreen. I couldn't smell sunscreen. And then I thought I could smell pineapple. And I thought I am losing my mind because obviously I'm not coping well with the conditions here. And so I walked into the common room, and I will tell you that I was smelling sunscreen and I was smelling pineapple because they had their whole common room decorated like Fiji. And as a matter of fact, they all had their bathing suits on. There were some questionable Speedos in the room, and everybody had their bathing suits on. They had their sun hats. They had their sunglasses. They all had glasses in front of them with little umbrellas and fresh fruit. And I went, what is going on here? And they said, oh, I guess we forgot to tell you. They said, once a month, we have a day. And every month we plan that day around a theme. And we've done Maui, we've done Tahiti, and today we're doing Fiji. And so I was completely taken aback. And I thought, they don't need you, Brenda. You need to learn from them. I was absolutely intrigued. Because they take steps to ensure that they can lighten their environment and enjoy their environment, and they work right through it. And so some of them were putting sunscreen on, by the way. They said, well, makes you kind of feel more like the sun might be there. They had all brought all the lights they had. I think they had every lamp from every room, and the place was lit up. It was bright. It was cheery. It smelled like Fiji. And, I said, this is wonderful. And yes, I did a little presentation on laughter in the workplace, on bringing humor to your settings. But I think I was singing to the choir because I think they know how to do it. And so I started to ask them about things that they do. And they said, oh, well, our work is really hard. Some of it's very routine. Our work is hard. We have to be up to date. We have to respond to people all the time. But we know how important it is to enjoy what we do. We know how important it is to have fun while we work. And so we plan, we initiate. So I'm just going to say to you, what can you do to initiate humor in your workplace, in your family, in your community? Because you know what? Sometimes we can get ourselves into the dumps, and we need somebody like you, who will actually initiate the humor. I had an idea, and I said to them, so what else do you do? Because I had an idea that it wasn't just all about this. They said, oh yeah, they said, we take turns, but every week we do something. They told me they have a backwards day. Now, probably your children have gone to school for backwards day, where they wear their clothes backwards. These people took backwards very seriously. They actually had a mask making day one time, and they all made masks of their face. And when they have backwards day, they put the mask on the back of their head so that they are actually two people. There's a person facing and a person facing that way. And they have worked really hard to create clothing, including shoes that they can actually wear backwards. They have backwards days. They have bad hair days. They do have hat days. I was quite intrigued. I saw some pictures. Their bad hair days were absolutely hilarious. Okay? They work hard because they work hard to bring humor and laughter to what they do. And so I've started to encourage people, and I say, here we are. We're in COVID times. And yes, we're not in our office where we can go out for lunch together. And some of us, we're not allowed to gather very often. But what can we do? And what I have found is that even virtually, we can do things. My family, and I use family examples, most of my family lives in British Columbia. I haven't seen two of my daughters, one of my sons, and my grandchildren now for a year and a half. But that's not true. I see them every week. Okay. And we even have games night on Zoom. And we play games. We actually play cards together on Zoom. It's not nearly as much fun because you can't manipulate your camera to cheat and look at somebody else's hand, which we're famous for doing in our card playing. But we have card games. We've played Scrabble, and you know, you can play Scrabble with friends on the apps, but we don't do that. We get our Scrabble boards out and we play Scrabble on Zoom and on Teams. You know what? We can do all kinds of things. There are most of the things that we can do, we can continue to do. But even when we are able to get back together, I'm a little bit worried because I think we think that when we get back to work, we're going to have to get back to work. And I'm here to say to you, keep in mind that people need to find the joy in getting back to work. Because once we find the joy, once we find the balance, then we'll be able to do what we need to do. So I want to pull it together because I think that very often we can learn from other people's experiences. But I think balancing work and fun, balancing relationships and fun, balancing things that have to be done with things that we love to do is a really important part of who we are and what we do. So I'm going to give you a little example from my childhood that many of you might appreciate. Are some of you old enough to remember being on a teeter-totter without your helmet? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I'm sure that some of you remember being on teeter-totters. I grew up in small town Manitoba. I went to one of those schools with 8 grades in one room, and we had a teeter-totter that I'm pretty sure that Dr. Francis Cuddy, who in Alberta is the brain injury man, he would have put a crime scene tape around our teeter-totter because it was dangerous. It was a very long teeter-totter. In fact, it was, I believe, probably a big 2x6 and it was on a steel pipe. Okay. It had nothing to hang on to. Do you remember that? We teeter-tottered, but there was no grip to hang on to. You just hung on to the other people who were on the teeter-totter. So we had this very long teeter-totter. I think at one point, I remember the teeter-totter being strapped to the pipe, but I think those straps had broken off. So our teeter-totter not only went up and down, it went back and forth, and it slid sideways a bit too. It was our real challenge. As a matter of fact, while I'm at it, I should mention our swings. Manitoba Hydro gave us swings. And they put these poles up, and I don't think they shortened the poles. We may have had the highest swings in Manitoba. And we held on to rope to swing and a plain board to sit on. I think most of the people from my era had slivers in their butt, either from the teeter-totter or the swings. But boy, oh boy, that teeter-totter was a bit of a teacher. Because yes, I will be honest with you, sometimes we did things on that teeter-totter that to this day I shudder to think about, because we used to give kids the bumps. Do some of you remember giving kids the bumps? So what we'd do is slam the teeter-totter down on one end and throw kids off the other end. And we thought it was fun. I used to get my sister to the top and then jump off. Awful thing to do. But we played on that teeter-totter. But there was something that happened in our school that I recount to you because later in my life, I realized that I learned from it. Sometimes at recess, and there were only 15, 16 kids in our school, so we weren't a big school. Sometimes at recess, and we were grade 1 to 8, so various sizes and shapes. Sometimes at recess, we would run out to the teeter-totter, but it wasn't about getting on and giving kids the bumps or throwing kids off. We would try this. Did you ever try it? We would try to get all 16 kids on that teeter-totter and then balance the teeter-totter. And how did you balance? Well, you know, it took a lot of work, of working together to achieve balance. We had to communicate. Some kids had to move up. Some kids had to move back. I had a skinny little girl named Donna. Sometimes we had to take her off this end, put her down on that end. We had a great big boy named Philip, okay? I think he was maybe 3rd year in grade 8 or something and taking some correspondence. Really big kid. He weighed over 200 pounds, I'm sure. Philip had to stand in the middle. But if everybody would play their role and if everybody would work together, we could do something that I think people could still do today. We could achieve balance. Oh, yes, it took a while. It took adjusting, but there was laughter, there was joy, there was fun, and we would giggle and chuckle and we'd move and then we'd get balance. And when we got balance, there's a huge cheer, and everybody would cheer and we'd jump off and then we'd try again. You know what? That teeter-totter to me is a parallel for work. I think almost every day we have to achieve balance. Yes, we've got a lot to do. We've got important work to do. We've got serious things to do. But while we're doing them, it means that we need to work together. We have to adjust. We have to balance. We have to find out what works for other people. And then we have to celebrate and cheer and laugh about what we've accomplished. And you know, I bring that to you because I think that COVID has created quite the teeter-totter. And finding our balance again is going to be one of the challenges. We are not going back to normal. We're going back to a new normal. And within that normal, let's take what we've learned. Let's see the silver lining. Let's find the lightness. Let's be willing to be the initiators. Let's come out the baggage chute backwards. Okay? Let's let people laugh with us and join us in the laughter, because that's how we will achieve the balance. And so when you get back on the teeter-totter, let's be ready to adjust. Let's lighten things up. And let's not just work hard when we get back. Let's work and have fun together. That's what's going to make us and give us the opportunities to cheer. And so maybe I'm the great cheerleader, but here we go. Okay, let's do it. Let's not just go back to work, nose to the grindstone, shoulder to the wheel. Let's go back to work, looking around for the opportunities to find that balance. I want to say thank you to you for 3 things, and thank you for some of the comments. If you've laughed, thank you. If you've giggled, thank you. If you've chuckled, thank you. But if you've thought about what role do I have to play in bringing laughter to my family, to my community, to my workplace, then congratulations. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again, perhaps next year. I'll look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda.